Nowadays, air shows like Farnborough, where I'm at today, well, they just feel a little bit different. Don't get me wrong, you're still surrounded by a ton of really exciting and interesting aircraft, but these sorts of air shows do seem to be more nowadays about the multi-billion-dollar deals that are being done, as opposed to the aviation itself. And whilst of course that's a really important part of aviation, it's also a little bit boring. So what I thought I would do is, whilst I'm here at Farnborough for the day, is instead of focusing on all the commercial sort of trade stuff that's going on in the background, instead I'm just going to try and find all the interesting aviation things that I can find here at the air show. The stuff that I'm interested in as a pilot and an aviator, the things that I think are going to be interesting for the future of aviation, but also really, to be honest, just focusing on some really, really cool planes that they have here today, like this.
The Farnborough International Airshow is held every other year. It attracts over 100,000 visitors, and in 2024 it generated over $150 billion in revenue for the aviation industry. But impressive as that is, as I said, I don't want to focus on that today, because I've heard at this year's airshow there are going to be some world-first aircraft demonstrations never seen before by the public, and some aircraft here at the show that could give us a very good idea of where aviation might actually be heading.
If you're an engine manufacturer and you want to make sure that your engine's going to be able to perform under the harshest of conditions, you of course test them on the ground thoroughly in laboratories, in testing environments, and make sure that they're working exactly as they should. But the moment you actually want to test them in the air, things become a little bit tricky, because if things go wrong in the air, then that's obviously a bad place for things to go wrong. Which is where this aircraft comes into play, because this is the General Electric Test 747, basically. It's their test bed, it's their airborne laboratory where they can test engines across a whole variety of different conditions. Things like certifying an engine for penetration into icing conditions, the structural testing of the engine itself, making sure there's no vibration when the engine is operating at various different altitudes, air temperatures, air densities, and all the other things that you can't test when an engine is just sitting on the ground in a frame in a laboratory. You have to take it up into the air to see how it actually operates in real world conditions. And this is the aircraft that they do it on. They strap the engine to this 747, take it up to altitude and thoroughly test it. Aviation quiz for you then. What aircraft is behind me right now? It's push powered. It's got basically an engine at the back that pushes it rather than one at the front that pulls it. It's Logan Air branded, which is a local carrier here in the United Kingdom. It's fully electric. It's got a range of just over 200 nautical miles. Any thoughts? This is actually the Alia CX300 as it's called, and yeah, like I say, fully electric aircraft, range of just over 200 nautical miles. They were actually using this one that's behind me recently, doing some testing around Scotland, doing some mail runs, short hops in between airports, which an aircraft like this is ideal for. If you're not doing long distances, you're obviously not going to get an aircraft like this doing something like Australia to Singapore. We are quite a long way away from that in terms of electric aviation. But for those shorter hops, they're kind of like, 50, 100 miles, 150 miles, something like this with the payload that it can carry actually becomes quite capable, as long as the charging infrastructure is there in place in the airports. But as that gets rolled out, especially in places like the UK where things are geographically a lot closer to each other, I can see more and more of these aircraft actually appearing at our airports as time goes on. On the subject of modern propulsion, getting away from jet engines in the future, behind me this is a modified Saab 340, which we're quite familiar with down in Australia, because we have a regional airline called Rex that uses quite a few of the Saab 340s. This one though has got modified General Electric engines on it, which are actually hybrid, so combining both the jet propulsion technology along with electric technology as well. This one behind me also has been on a couple of successful flight tests, all the way up to 30,000 feet. They've flown it in the past using the hybrid engine technology. Even if we can't leap all the way forward to full electric propulsion for regional passenger aircraft like this in the future, perhaps hybrid is the way that we might actually get there. A bit of a stepping stone, like we had the sort of Prius cars in the automotive industry. Maybe we'll go for hybrid technology first and eventually move to something which doesn't use any fossil fuel technology whatsoever. This is the new variant of the popular Embraer E190. This is the E190-E2. It's actually being used in Australia by Virgin Australia, who are replacing some of their Fokker 100 aircraft, flying people out from places like Perth to some more remote regional airstrips, some mining strips, which are quite short and require an aircraft which has got good capacity in terms of what it can carry, but also good short takeoff and landing performance. And the Embraer E190-E2 gives people like Virgin Australia exactly that, which is why we're seeing more of these coming into Australia now. If you're a Qantas fan, you'll recognise this aircraft behind me. Even though it says United, it's obviously in their livery here at Farnborough, but that's the A321XLR, which Qantas are replacing, so cool. Qantas are replacing their 737 fleet with this aircraft over the next few years. I think we're going to get about 48 in total in Australia of these new 321 XLRs. We'll see more and more of those and less of the 737s, which have been the workhorse of the Qantas fleet for many years now. But they won't be around forever, because behind me that is very much the future of Qantas short-haul domestic. It's the Emirates Airbus A350 behind me. That's actually the A350-900. Not the version of the A350 I'm most interested in. The one that I'm keen to see in the future is going to be the A350-1000 ultra long range ULR, because that's going to be coming to Australia in late 2027 as Qantas use it as part of Project Sunrise. They're planning to do non-stop flights between the east coast of Australia, Melbourne and Sydney, all the way across to London non-stop, and the other way across the Pacific to New York non-stop as well, which I just think is incredible, to know that you can get on board an aircraft in Heathrow, take off, and the next time its wheels touch the ground you'll be in Melbourne or Sydney, is remarkable. And to think, like 100 years ago, when the pioneers of aviation were planning those routes for us, it would take them 30 days to make their way from London across to Sydney in something like the old Vickers Vimy, made not too far from here. And to think that now Airbus and companies like that working with Qantas are going to be able to do round the world travel non-stop at the end of next year, I think it's amazing. It just blows my mind, to be honest. I can't wait to try it.
After the F-22 finished its demo, it was then time to quiet things down a little bit and witness a demonstration that I'd been really looking forward to. Because today we were seeing the first ever public demonstrations of two very special aircraft.
The motors are starting to tilt forward and the aircraft is accelerating and gaining speed. And that transfers the lift off of those motors and onto the wing, as you see now. And the aircraft is
the first
already
being
gone
this,
through.
the Vertical Aerospace eVTOL, or Electric Vertical Takeoff and Landing Aircraft. A British-designed and built aircraft that's currently in the process of getting its CAA certification. And which category it'll fit in, well, that's still a bit of an unknown. I mean, it's somewhere between a drone, a helicopter, and a fixed-wing aircraft.
There's a critical point there where obviously rolling down, under the clouds.
It's a different class, I know. Thanks, okay, thanks Johnny, and thanks to everybody in the Vertical team.
So Vertical, the manufacturers of that aircraft that we saw doing that very impressive vertical takeoff and landing demo, and have actually opened up the area around the aircraft now, so members of the public, we can come and have a closer look. And it's really cool to see this thing up close. A couple of things that I noticed: obviously there has a lot of engines, 4 at the front, 4 at the back. When it's taking off, it uses all of those to generate the vertical lift. But the really cool thing is when it goes into like regular flight, when it's only using the pull of the engines to pull it through the air, basically, not to pull it vertically. It's using the wings for lift and the engines for thrust. The engines that aren't being used actually go into this folded state at the back so that they're producing as little drag as possible. Just think about the sophistication required in an aircraft like this for the computer systems that control what the engines are doing, because the pilot isn't controlling every single engine individually. They're basically inputting a command input and the computer is working it out, and then it's telling each of the engines what to do in order to get that state of flight that the pilot wants. It's a fantastically sophisticated, but also in some ways quite a simple aircraft. It's really cool to see it up close. And next up, the Saab 340 that we saw earlier with the hybrid engine. I didn't realise this, but they're actually going to fly it.
The Saab 340 demo saw it climbing to 1,000 feet just using the battery power on its one hybrid engine. And just like an electric car would, as it descended, as the propeller is windmilling, it actually uses that turning motion to regenerate electricity and help top up its own battery. It's very clever stuff. And again, this was the first ever public demonstration of this hybrid engine, and whilst it just looked and performed like any other ordinary turboprop engine, I guess that's kind of the objective. But how it will be used and how engines like this could potentially reduce fossil fuel usage in aviation in the future is something that prototype aircraft like this are hopefully going to help answer.
And is helping redefine the future of regional air transport.
And then there was a quick demo from the Beta Technologies CX300. Because it takes off like a regular fixed-wing aircraft, it's going to make certifying it easier than things like the new eVTOL designs. But Loganair must really like this aircraft because at the show today, they ordered 5 CX300s with an option for 5 more to operate within their fleet, which flies sectors mostly under 100 miles, which really is right in the sweet spot for an electric aircraft like this.
I did start this video, I think, being maybe a little bit too cynical about the way that air shows are going at the moment, because I think, yes, there have been a lot of trade deals, there's a lot of military down here, but it's actually been a great experience and a way for me to see where an industry that I love so much could potentially be going in the very not too distant future. I've had a really good day today. I'm a little bit sunburnt and I haven't drunk enough water. I've had a really good day.